Now, because it's the summer transfer window, there is rightly a lot of excitement around the players that Liverpool might be about to bring in to help them in the defence of the Premier League title. But I do think it's worth remembering there are a few players already on the books at Anfield who may be able to make more of a telling impact next season than they did in the last. And I think chief among them really is Stefan Bajcetic, who of course spent last season out on 2 separate loan stints. Now, you will remember when he broke through into the first team at Liverpool, there was a lot of excitement around his potential. He was a bit of a kind of bright spot in a difficult season for the Reds. Since then, he's been plagued by injuries and had real trouble with that, getting back to fitness. And although he did manage to do that prior to Arne Slot coming in, and then was joining in pre-season with the idea of getting a full season under his belt, unfortunately the manager then decided that he needed a loan stint to get himself back up to sharpness. So the big question, of course, is now that he's come back from that loan stint and he's available to be part of the first team squad, is he ready to do that, and can he make an impact for Liverpool next season? Well, as usual, I've taken a dive into the numbers to try and find out whether that's possible. And before I do that, quickly, I just want to talk about, of course, the basics around what he's done last season. Now, of course, there were 2 separate loan stints. The first of those with RB Salzburg in the first half of the season. The second half of the season, then he returned to Spain, his homeland, to join Las Palmas. And 12 league appearances and 6 Champions League appearances at Salzburg. But of course, Pep Lijnders was sacked in December, wasn't he? And he was a bit of a key ally for Bajcetic at the club. He was so instrumental in bringing him in on loan from Liverpool. Once he was gone, didn't look like there was much prospect of Bajcetic continuing to play, and that's why Liverpool saw a second loan spell. Now, of course, he did join Las Palmas and 14 appearances in La Liga for the Spanish club, and he got some big compliments you will have seen in his time there as well. Some comparisons even to Sergio Busquets, which is, I don't think you can get much higher praise than that for a defensive midfielder. But is there any legitimacy to those claims? Well, as I say, we'll have a look at the numbers to see if that's the case. Now, I'm going to start by showing you his defensive part of his scouting report from FBref. So this includes Champions League appearances and league appearances over the last 365 days and compares him to others in the top 5 leagues. So his Salzburg contributions in the league here are not involved in this. It's just La Liga and then his Champions League appearances for Salzburg in these numbers. But when I bring them up, you can see it. I still think that looks very, very impressive. I mean, you can see he's tackling an awful lot. He's in high percentile for all these things, intercepting a lot, winning aerial duels at a decent rate. So he looks like a bit of a defensive monster if you're to look at those numbers. Now, there is a note of caution in these. Of course, Las Palmas did get relegated, so there's a lot of chances to do these things. And of course, Champions League games for Salzburg, they'd very much be on the back foot in most of those, wouldn't he? So he's getting a lot of chances to get around and break up play, because these are not games at Las Palmas are dominating the ball or Salzburg are dominating the ball. They're coming up against bigger and better opponents, so that can boost your defensive numbers. But it is worth knowing, that, check this out, and he won 59% of his challenges in La Liga, 45.3% of his tackles, so winning them at a decent rate. It's not just about the volume. He is winning tackles and challenges at a decent rate, and it's also, of course, this is for a 20-year-old as well. He's not physically quite filled out yet, so I still think that is quite impressive numbers that he's putting up on the defensive side. And I think we had seen a little bit of that when he appeared at Liverpool, didn't we? That he was very good in the challenges and tackles and getting about the pitch and breaking things up. So that's supported, I'd say, by the numbers. Now, of course, we know if you're a defensive midfielder at Liverpool, you've got to be so much more than someone who can just run around and kick people, don't you? You've got to be very good on the ball as well, and that is maybe where we're seeing a little bit of an issue in Bajcetic's numbers here. So bring them up, and you see on the ball there's a lot of red and low percentiles, isn't there? Now, again, it's worth mentioning there are some team effects at play there. He wouldn't be in a team that's dominating the ball in the Champions League. Same in the Liga, really. So, that will damage his possession numbers. But I still think even in a poor team, you would maybe be hoping for a little bit more than he's shown there. Now, he's still very good at take-ons, which, of course, is a very Gravenberg thing we've seen in that deep lying role, the little drop of the shoulder and turning away. And that's before Gravenberg was doing that for Liverpool. We actually did see Bajcetic do that quite a bit for Liverpool, didn't we? So it's almost his trademark move rather than Gravenberg's. But that's the only thing that really stands out that he's doing in possession. I think the numbers we're seeing there, they don't really look like someone who can come in as cover even and dictate play for Liverpool, who are so dominant in possession, aren't they? And that 74.8 pass completion, that is a serious red flag, I'd say, for a player who wants to play for Liverpool, particularly because it's not under Jurgen Klopp, it's under Arne Slot. He wants a little bit more of the ball, or certainly to be more careful with the ball, whereas Jurgen Klopp's football, at times it was, force it, play as quickly as you can. It's a bit more patient under Arne Slot, isn't it? So I think that 74.8 pass completion is very much on the low side. Now, I could show you now at this point his attacking output, but take my word for it, it's very, very much on the low side of things, and a lot of red in there and not very impressive. But I would also say, for a defensive midfielder, it's not what he's in the team for. I mean, Gravenberch himself, when you look at his numbers in the attacking elements, is not great for shots, for non-penalty goals. He did used to be, actually, if you checked kind of 12 months back, his numbers there were very good. But since he's moved into that deeper role, we're not seeing a lot of him in terms of those elements of the game. So it's not really something to kind of judge Bajcetic by. But what I want to do, instead of showing you his attacking output, is offer a comparison that I think is relevant, and it's with a man who's placed in the squad that if Bajcetic was to come back into the squad next season, he would be competing for. And I am, of course, talking about Wataru Endo. Now, I can only look at Wataru Endo's 23-24 season because he just didn't get enough minutes last season to make a comparison fair or relevant here. So the comparison is between Bajcetic last season and Endo the season before. And I bring up the graphic here that kind of shows the comparison. I think you can see that Bajcetic, as we expect, is doing more defensive things in a worse team, as you would expect, but Endo's still managing to do a lot of those, even in a Liverpool team that was dominant and good and challenged for the title in 23-24. He's still showing up quite well in the defensive numbers, and then you see the gap between the two in terms of the passing of the ball, the work that they do in possession. He's passing the ball much better. He's safer with it. He's better with it. It's actually an underrated element of Endo's game, I think, what he does in possession, his ability to kind of punch a ball through the lines. I mean, I don't think he's McAllister, I don't think he's even Gravenberch in that aspect, but he isn't poor in possession, is he? And I think he shows that enough whenever he does get on the pitch. So there's a clear gap there, is that Endo is much better really in the possession elements of the game and more. And I think if you put Endo in a Las Palmas team that was getting dominated as they were maybe off the ball, his defensive numbers would be better than Bajcetic's as well. So I think you can see there that it would be a struggle if Bajcetic were to come into the squad now for him to directly challenge Endo for that place as backing up Ryan Gravenberch. Now, I do want to caveat all this comparison by saying Bajcetic is only 20 years old. The expectation is that he will improve as he ages, as he fills out a little bit more. But I think my big question about, the question I wanted to ask in this whole video really is he capable of coming into the squad next season? Well, if he needs to improve and he wants to take those steps to be even as good as Endo is right now, then I think, he needs minutes to get there and he needs to play more frequently. And he's not going to displace Endo at the moment because he isn't a better option. And it is my understanding, by the way, that Endo doesn't really want to leave Liverpool this summer. I know there have been some suggestions he might want to go in search of more game time, but it is my understanding that he wants to play more, yes, but he wants to stick around at Liverpool and fight for the right to play more at Liverpool next season. He doesn't want to give up on the dream of staying at Anfield and being part of winning trophies, or certainly not just yet anyway. So he wants to stick around. So you put all those things together and you're thinking, where are Bajcetic's opportunities really going to come? Endo's going to play in the League Cup, he's going to play in the FA Cup, he's going to be the first sub off the bench if you need to replace Gravenberch in a game. Bajcetic isn't just quite there, is he, in terms of being ready to fulfill that role, and so he won't get the minutes that he needs to continue his development. So one thing I would say in terms of his long-term future, maybe was a bit of a red flag in terms of his readiness when he was loaned out with such speed by Arne Slot last summer. I think he saw immediately that Bajcetic wasn't ready, and I think looking at the numbers, he would maybe make a similar decision this time. But I think his age means that maybe surely you would push more for a loan move, another chance for him to continue his development rather than sending him out on a permanent at this stage, because I think there is some promise there, and we've seen it before, and I think it's too early yet to make a firm decision on Bajcetic. So for me, the ideal situation is that he goes out on loan for another season, and then we see what Endo wants to do. We see where Bajcetic is at and move forward from there. So I'm going to wrap it up there anyway. Do let me know your thoughts on that. What would you do with Stefan Bajcetic ahead of next season? Is there any way you would loan him, or do you think it's time to maybe just sell? Is it not going to work out? Do let me know your thoughts on that. And if you can like and subscribe, that would be massively appreciated. And I'll see you guys very soon.